I really appreciate you coming today. Can I ask you, like, just for everyone, what your name is, a little bit about yourself, where you're from?
Yep, my name is Katie Stagger. I'm right from Syracuse. I work at the Northeast Community Center.
Tell me a little bit about the Northeast Community Center. What is that for you?
So I've been with the Northeast Community Center for about 25 years. I grew up in that neighborhood, so it's kind of like home, you know. Started working there as a teenager, left, got married, came back. So I've been there ever since. I do different jobs over there, but my main job is a senior program coordinator, so I work with senior citizens.
Okay. To give like a little background, like we met, Lord, it's been a long time, maybe, what was it, 2012, 13 maybe? Or was it a little bit later than that?
No, it might have been 11 or 12, actually.
Okay, yes. Do you mind kind of talking about your memories to that first interaction and kind of why we met?
So we met because you want to interview me for a video for Beer House.
Yes.
And one of the reasons is I was a survivor of domestic violence. And so I got to tell you my story. This is a lot different, though.
A lot different,
Yeah.
yes. Yes. It's I remember that I had not done any interviews with anyone who had dealt with domestic violence. Like, you were 100% the first person I spoke to, and I was tremendously nervous about it. And then 10 years later, we were doing so many more interviews, but you always kind of stuck with me because you were that first person, and your story was so intense, and you told it so well. And I run into your family members through Syracuse, and I'm like, she is one of my favorite people. So that's amazing.
I say the same thing about you.
That's very kind.
Because you did make me very comfortable to tell my story then. And then I got to do it more and more with you. So it was very easy the first time when you and I were doing it. You were real good with me, too. So that was a big plus. You made me feel comfortable, and we got through it.
We did.
We did.
Your story was, I would say, like, I don't want to use the word insane, but it was intense. Like, it was like, I remember asking you questions, and as the answers came, my mind was like, it really does not happen often, has not happened often since, where your mind just kind of, you're hearing the story, and I'm taking a minute longer to ask the next question because I can't think about the next question because I'm so engaged in the story and in what you're saying. Do you mind if I ask you kind of like to talk a little bit about that journey, and so we can kind of go through that and then kind of bring up to speed some of what's happening now and just kind of your thoughts since then? I mean, 10 years, long time, lifetimes.
Yeah. Wow. So everything happened in 2010. I'd left my husband after 20 some odd years. My children were pretty much grown. My oldest daughter had a son, Jonathan, who is 17. He was 3 then.
Yes, time goes. Yes. Wow.
So, yeah, I left the abuse, which had been ongoing in my marriage, and thought everything was good. I've seen other people get out of marriages. You know, divorce is easy, right? Except mine wasn't. And so July, and I'm not real sure of the day because of it. The 9th, I went to sleep, and the 10th, everything went crazy. So the 9th and the 10th of July are really crazy for me every year. This year hit a little bit harder, but I'll get back to that. So yeah, that night we went to bed, and the next thing I know, crazy happened. And I thought that I was being punched, and I didn't really know who it was at first. Punched and over and over and over. Come to find out, he had stabbed me over and over and over. Jonathan, and this is always the hard part, Jonathan didn't wake up, but he was laying next to me when it happened. and he's since asked questions, so that's a little hard too. But they did get him, and I survived it. And I think a lot of the surprise for people is because how many times I was stabbed, and that I had survived all that and lived to talk about it.
And your son Jonathan was 3 years old at the time.
My grandson.
Your grandson was 3 years old at the time, and he was just next to you.
He was sleeping next to me. So because it was hot that night, I put blankets on the floor. I took a shower, gave him a bath. It was nice and cool. Put up a curtain across the doorway to keep the air conditioner in that room so we would be cool that night. And turned off the TV so he would go to sleep. And I thought I seen the curtain move, but the fan was going, the air conditioner was going, so I didn't really pay much mind to it. Went to sleep, and then it got crazy. And I couldn't have been asleep more than an hour, a little over an hour when it started.
Are you comfortable talking about that man, or is that something okay. If memory serves, you said he had gotten in and left a window open unbeknownst to you, or am I incorrect about that memory?
Oh, no, you're right. So I was shortening it really tight there. So that night he came up the way our apartment was set up. We were above a pizza place, and then there was a garage in back, and we were on the second floor. He got on the garage, cut the screen in the window, and came in through Allison's room. Allison was at home.
And Allison's your daughter?
Yes. Yeah. She's my youngest daughter. And then came into the house. I don't know how long he was there, but that's the police said that the screen was ripped, and that's how he got in. And then after he did what he did, after he stabbed me and beat me up, he started back down the hallway, and my other daughter, Amanda, had woken up and opened the door, and that's Jonathan's mother. And when she opened the door, he said, "I killed your mother. You might want to call the police." And then came back into the room. And I think he took my wallet, my cell phone, kicked me in the head, I think, to make sure I was dead, because I had fallen. It's so crazy. I always say this, but I felt like I could see everything happening and just let my body drop like I was dead. So he thought I was dead, but he kicked me just to make sure I was dead. And then he went back towards Amanda and let himself out the front door. And so Amanda ran in. And these parts I hear other people talk about. So I don't remember her coming in, but she came in, got Jonathan, went, and I could hear her screaming though. And when she was calling 911, that her father killed her mother, and John was so much blood all over Jonathan, she had to check him and wake him up to see, make sure he was okay.
Do you have is it spotty, or is your mind sharp for those moments to remember everything, or is it just comes and goes?
I remember when I think about it, or it just pops in my head. I can remember a lot of it, but now it's been so long. I hear other people's versions of it. They just don't know what happened in that room. Only I do, and Jonathan was sleeping, so he doesn't remember anything, and I thank God for that part. And Amanda had woken up at the end of it, so she didn't see anything. So from her getting John as her point of view, I didn't remember her even coming in there. In that room, when everything was happening, it was just like a bad dream, or, I thought, what is going on? Why is he hurting me? He's throwing me around the room. And when I woke up and found out that I was stabbed, that was another surprise, right? Because I'm thinking that I was being punched. But I do remember trying to grab the phone, and when I when I went to grab the phone, I lifted this arm because I'm right-handed, and I could see the blood just pouring out. And I'm sorry if I'm being too graphic.
No, you're fine.
And I remember grabbing my wrist. And again, I passed out again. I know I was in and out a lot. And then I heard a man's voice. So I got scared. And like I said, it's kind of hard to know when I was passed out or, awake. It kept happening. I remember the man's voice, and I wouldn't answer at first. And then he said, Katie. And I guess Amanda must have told him my name. It's Officer Ripley. I'm getting you help. So I did tell him that it was my husband, my ex-husband. I don't remember a lot. I remember him saying he would meet me at the hospital, and he did. And thank God for that, man. I know the ambulance was there. I know other police officers were there, but I just remember him. And to this day, I still write a letter to the police chief every July just because I hope he knows that I do that, because I've not seen him since we went to trial, grand jury. We didn't go to trial.
What is, when people ask you questions or you think back about this, what are the things that you think that people just can't or don't understand because they didn't go through it that you understand?
So a lot of questions I get are, was he drunk? Was he on drugs? No. He didn't drink and he didn't do drugs. He's just mean. He's an evil, mean person. And I don't think they get that. I think that they want to think that he was on drugs and alcohol so that it makes sense to them, right? Because in front of other people, he was always a nice person. They didn't see the person I seen. And I think that it's hard for people to understand, why'd you stay, right? The question's always, well, why'd you stay so long? And I don't think they get the depth of terror you're in. That he would threaten to kill my children, or he threatened if I told my father, he would kill my father. I didn't tell my father because I didn't want my father to hurt him and go to prison, and then I have no father. So it just kind of like a big circle of, I should have, but this would have happened. I could have, but this would happen. So I just think that people don't, unless you're in it, you don't understand it.
Was he someone that when he was in public or around other people, was it a transformation where it was almost odd for you to see the fake version of him versus the version you saw?
No, because it was normal. That was a normal persona. He wasn't two different people, but he acted like two different people. I wasn't ever surprised because I knew that's how he was.
And it was 100% believable. There was no signs that he was able to just chameleon himself into that.
Yes.
Your daughter Amanda, again, if there's things that you want me to stay away from 100%, especially when it comes to other people, how old was she when that happened?
Ooh, she was 21.
Did she ever talk about that or have remembrances towards that night that I'm sure that did stick with her, but any kind of realizations over life or just anything that she shared?
The only thing she shared with me is that she wants nothing to do with him, that she doesn't want him around her children, that she's afraid too. He did this once and he didn't succeed at it. So it's not taboo with us. It's just, we've gone on with our lives.
Sure. So
I think that, I have 2 other grandchildren now that know nothing, and I know the internet's a big thing, and I know that you can Google anybody. but I think that by the time they're old enough to Google, it'll be gone, right? They won't know. But Amanda's good at answering questions, and like with Jonathan, when I did something on TV and he seen my face and he heard things. So we always knew it was going to happen sooner or later because I was I was out there in the public.
Sure.
And so we just did as, my advocate at the time said, don't answer anything don't add anything to anything he doesn't question.
Got you.
Does that make sense?
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
only answer his questions. So we did.
Did it make sense that night, for some reason, looking back, that was a night for some reason, or was it just completely a random act coming from just someone who was very, very sick?
Random. I think that, a lot of things led up to that too. So I know I don't talk about a lot of the beforehand things. So prior to this, many, many years of abuse, physical, emotional, financial, but I had left, I believe, in February of that year, and that was a big blow up at our house. He actually was home, just got home from the hospital. He had a heart attack. So they had put a stent in his heart. So I went downstairs. He wasn't comfortable. I don't know. I slept on the couch. And I don't even remember really what started it, but he was flipping the table. And so Allison yelled at me and Amanda and the baby to go in her room. She called the police. She was done. And she was in college then. So she was home for one of the breaks in February, I guess. Maybe it was January. And so between the time, that day when I kicked him out, there was no question he was gone. I was done. Because police were there and they were like, he goes, or we call CPS because you have a child in the house. And I said, he goes. There was I didn't even think about it, gone. But then from that day till July, just stole my garbage, kicked in my basement windows. He would have people call Allison and tell her what I was wearing, because they were looking through my windows, or I must have changed my phone number 3 times. He would be at my house when I got home from work and just talk so much that probably after like a week of that, I couldn't hear it anymore. It sounded like Charlie Brown's teacher.
So like when you say talk, like he would just be near the house, like
sitting on my stairs.
Okay.
And then he threatened a neighbor of mine. Her son was in my house, and he threatened him, and he threatened me, and so I got an order of protection and that was hard to get because I didn't physically see him do these things. So I would call the police, but I didn't see him, so they couldn't do anything. But there was no one else that was going to be doing all these things.
Right.
And so finally, I can't even remember what happened that I got the order of protection, but I got it. And it was a full order. And so then one night he come pounding on my door, and so I called the police. They got there. One police officer wasn't very nice to me and wanted to know how I got the full order of protection. Another police officer was there, very nice. Talked to me, talked to him. They got him out. And then, I don't know, a few weeks later, he shows up with 2 more police officers with him, saying he needed to get his work tools. He was on Social Security disability. He didn't work. But they brought him in, and one officer stayed with me, and one went downstairs, and he come back up with a hatchet. So I looked at the other officer, and I said, "You're letting him take a hatchet. This is crazy." But she said, "He can take whatever he wants, blah, blah, blah." So then he would come with a police officer and take things. And I didn't know. No one said, you can say no. Finally, one officer was like, he goes, "I'm coming for the TV and the officer said, "Do you want him to take the TV?" And I said, "Do I have a choice?" And he said, "Yeah, you can say no." So then we moved, me and the girls, because I just felt unsafe, and I was real tired of him showing up, and he was not listening to the order of protection, and if I didn't see him, it didn't count, kind of thing. So we moved just right around the bend, and things got weird there too. One day I come home and he's standing in my window of my dining room in my apartment. So, and not even thinking about it until just now, I don't know how he got in my apartment because the girls weren't home. So just weird little things added up. That night, though, our refrigerator wasn't working. So I had left. The girls called him to come bring ice in a cooler. And then Allison left. Amanda and I and Jonathan went to bed. And then that's when he snuck in. So and he moved the refrigerator too. This is kind of the odd part out. He moved the refrigerator from the wall and kind of put it in front of Allison's door. And that's the window he actually came into. So had I not even had the blanket or the curtain up over the doorway, I wouldn't have seen him come in anyway.
Sure. Is that something like in court that help or play a level to hit like a premeditation level when that detail or not?
We didn't. The only thing we did, we went to grand jury because we were going to go to trial, but then he took a plea deal, and probably I was told things and I don't remember. Like, I don't remember anyone saying you don't have to accept the plea, but I'm assuming they did. I was going through a lot of surgeries then, and the pain meds, and just the whole ordeal of this. So sometimes I think about it like, but people are real good about telling me what was going on. So I'm almost certain someone probably did tell me, and I just went along with what was easiest, to get over the whole, just to get him put away.
Can you tell me what was the sentence and when did that happen and how long has that lasted?
So he was sentenced May of 2011. He, I believe, got 18 years. Sometimes I forget because I'm always checking, so they sent, 18 years because he could get out 2 years early on parole. But if he didn't, he'd spend 2 more years there and then be out with no parole. So they did send him to Attica. And he was there until, I want to say 3 years ago.
Okay.
I'm a little butthurt with the state because no one told me they moved him. So that was a big shocker that he was moved from Attica right down to Mid-State, which is in Oneida, I believe. So the hardest part right now is knowing that he goes up for parole next October. So I don't know if you've seen, I don't write a lot about him or what happens on social media, but I did the other day just because I try to get it off my chest and be done.
Sure.
But the past few weeks, usually it's just a day or two, but the past few weeks this year hit hard. And I'm terrified. Because on one hand, he gets out on parole and he's watched for 2 years, or he stays in for 2 more years and then no one's watching him. So it's a lose-lose, really.
Sure. So no matter what, in 2 years, he's getting out, essentially?
He'll get So he'll go, if he doesn't get out of, if next year in 2025, if he doesn't get out on parole in December, he has 2 more years, and then he'll be out either way. That's the end.
Are you able to petition for him not to get out at least in December? Or
I could, but then there's the question: if I do that, then he'll spend 2 more years there, and then get out and not have parole. Then no one's
right
knows where he is or what he's doing. And I know people don't get it, how evil he is. He's an evil person, and he tried to kill me, and he's going to get out. And we were just talking about this the other day, that it feels a little bit different than someone that committed murder getting out. That person's dead. They wanted him dead, they're dead. They have no reason to hurt anyone else. If it's one person, if it's like a lot, then
right.
But he wanted me dead, and that didn't happen. And I said, I read a statement in court the day of his sentencing that I knew would kind of get under his skin, not thinking, wow, in 18 years I have to deal with that again, right? And I reread that because I kept the paper. I reread it like, oh, could he have taken it a wrong way? Which then I was hoping he took it the way I meant it, right? And so now it's just like, what do I do?
Do you have kind of any backup plans, or how does someone maneuver that at this point?
I don't know. People have different opinions, move away. But my kids are here, my grandkids are here, my friends are here. I've lived here my whole life. I should give up my life and what I know for him to be here, and then my kids don't have me.
Sure.
Because they're adults. They're not I can't just scoop them up and move them somewhere now,
I feel like he's lost all of his rights, and he should not be allowed to come to the same state. You've given up your right to whatever state she's in, you got to move. And that's is there any kind of laws that?
I wish there was. And actually I got through the week, and I said, I took the weekend, I went away, and now I'm determined to figure out something. At least get answers. Yeah. So like you said, we don't want him here.
I think there's a lot of things that people don't understand about domestic violence. If they're not, it's so prevalent. I'm surprised there's such, I would say ignorance or not comprehending elements of it. But I feel like there's broad strokes that are very misunderstood. I remember talking to somebody, and they'd said that there was another really unhealthy human being, and he had some kind of protective order against him for I think it was a long time. And the day it ended, he made the phone call. It was years or something to that degree. And so it's there's something about these people that just, yes, they're stuck. They're stuck in time, and this is the person. Can you talk a little bit about the personality behind that human being? Because I think so many people think it's an easy thing, like you were saying, why don't you just leave, or why doesn't he it's they don't understand the complexity of and the sickness and how deep that goes. Can you kind of explain some of the method and the madness behind a mind like that?
I think my own personal view of it is the control, right? So part of what happened was he lost control of me, couldn't control me anymore. But he was trying. He kept trying. And they don't think when they do things I'm going to control her, I'm going to take her garbage. Right? Some of it seems silly to other people, but that's scary. Why are you taking my garbage? Why are you kicking in the windows? Why are any of this? Why? It's hard to understand. It really is. I don't really even think I understand. I know that the control loss with him was a big thing. He couldn't control me. and I wasn't his. You know, it's like you're their property. And I've heard a lot of women and men say that they've been called, you're mine, you're my property. And pretty much I heard the exact same words. And I know everyone's is different, but we all felt like they were our owner, you know, or they at least thought they were our owners.
Sure. How long did you know him for?
Wow, I met him when I was probably 13. Yeah, 13. And we dated then, young. We dated off and on, and then, you know, he dated. We were young. But sometimes when I'm talking to older friends that I've known my whole life, we talk about things like, why did I even go back to him when I was older? Because he wasn't the nicest person then either. You know, he wasn't nice to his mother. She wasn't nice to him either, though. So that was a whole mix of weird there. But I think that mentally, you think about it later, 2020, right? Like it gets, like sometimes I try not to think about it. Like it'll just come up and then I try to, the hard part is trying to see why it happened. And there's never a why. There was never a reason. There was never, but if you're in the moment with the person that's doing it, there's always a reason. You did this or you didn't do this, you know. But I don't know that they even know why.
So he was always not the nicest person then? Or was he always a violent person, or did that escalate?
It escalated. Well, I say that, but actually we were together. I found out I was pregnant, so we got married. I probably wouldn't have married him if I wasn't. The night of my wedding, we went back to the house, and we were staying with his relatives at the time. They had a big house. I don't know what happened, but God, it was so long ago. I don't know what happened, but I know what happened to me after the fact. So I was on my back with my wedding gown on, and he was choking me. He was that mad, and I can't remember what I made him mad about.
Was that like a natural, like not out of character for him to do?
No, that was, you know, because we had been apart, and then he was so nice and so different, you know, that when we started kind of seeing each other, yada, 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 got pregnant, we got married, nothing until that night. Then it was like, I own you now, today. But I did leave. I left that night. My mother came, my father came, they got me out of there. I went and stayed with someone for a few months, and of course he wooed me right back in. I don't know what happened. I must have been drunk, you know, all the hype from the wedding, yada, yada, yada. And the only reason he stopped is I kept saying the baby, you know, because I know I'm pregnant. I thought I hid it from my grandma, but I didn't. So wooed me back in. Didn't physically hurt me again until my daughter was 6 months old. And it was Halloween, and first time mom, I got her cute, and we're just answering the door. And it was cooler. It's October. So we're answering the door, and I got her sitting in her stroller so she could see the kids. And he came in and was screaming that it was freezing and that she was going to get sick, and pinned me up against the refrigerator. And his brother, who was a teenager, of course, couldn't help, but right in front of his brother, had me up against the refrigerator. The woman next door had called the cops. They came, told me to take the baby and go for a walk. He should go for a walk, come back when we cool down. So that happened many, many times.
What did his brother say? Was it normalized with that family, or?
I don't know. I think he was scared.
Okay.
Because I don't remember their father hitting their mother. But I also wasn't really privy to inside their house a lot either. The mom really didn't like me since I was a kid. So, yeah, I don't know. I believe he was scared.
Were you ever able to like ask him or talk about these things when he was not in that state, or was that just something that never got done?
It was always under the rug, sweep it under the rug. And sometimes I see myself do that now, like not anger things, but if someone like makes me upset, I sweep it under the rug because it's better there than facing whatever wrath is going to come at me sometimes. But then I have to remember everyone isn't him. I don't have to put it under the rug. We can talk about it like normal people and be okay.
Is there things that you would tell people that you think they wouldn't necessarily think about, or people like men or women who are in abusive relationships who may not at beginning stages, that you're like, these were things that when I look back are things that I'd want to say to people to look out for?
Yeah. It's so weird because I'm going through that with a friend, and I try really hard not to say run. But even at a young age, even as a teenager, I should have looked out for things like he would only get angry at me. Or if he was angry with someone else, he would be mean to me. Or he would do things like, I'm also going to date myself, but, we didn't have cell phones. So I had to be in the house when he called. Now I notice, and I see it a lot, girls will be taking their pictures and while they're talking or doing the FaceTime thing so that they could see where they are, what they're doing. That it's really scary to me that a 15-year-old has that much control of a 15-year-old girl. Or just, it's so hard when I'm trying to think of things that I would, or even money. Young couples get married and the money is a big thing. They always want, we'll have a joint account, but you never have control of any of the money.
Sure.
So there's so many different things that people should be aware of or watch for, and they say the red flags, but after the fact, red flags seem like everything. So beforehand, if you know, or if you sit and talk to someone, if you think it's going in the wrong direction, your relationship, you should really talk to somebody, because I didn't talk to anyone. I would sweep that under the rug or lie my way out of things so that my family didn't know, or, I thought my kids didn't see a lot. But I was wrong.
Did he evolve in ways that, like, if something didn't work, or did he just kind of stay the same with the things he did? He was not concerned about coming off a certain way, or I don't know if that makes sense. Like, was his sickness? Did his sickness essentially evolve over time, or was he just like one pace and he kind of just stayed there the entire time?
I think there was a regular pace of it, but then there were explosions. So different things would tick him off, right? For instance, I would go to family functions. He didn't want to go to family functions. And when he did, everybody, you guys, hey, you finally showed up, things like that. But I would go to his family functions. He wouldn't even go. So it would be, you said this in front of my grandmother. How dare you? It wouldn't happen there, though. It would happen when we got back home. So it was always a ticking time bomb. You never knew what you did or when you did something wrong or said something wrong, or cooked something that tasted different from the last time you cooked it.
So just anything. There's just,
Yeah.
to have that kind of stress and constant stress on you, like, how do you mediate that on a nervous system level when you're going through that?
I think in the beginning, you're always on edge, right? You're always, especially after the first time. The first one, you think he didn't mean it because he said he didn't mean it. But I think it evolves, and then you never knew, right? So I wouldn't say I was always on edge, but I was always aware that it could happen, right? Maybe not for a week, maybe not 2 weeks, especially the honeymoon phases of something would happen this week, and then flowers would come, and then I'll never hurt you again, or, verbal ones weren't, it was the hitting ones that were more like the honeymoon things. So you never knew. I guess my anxiety was higher than I thought, but I was raising kids, and I wanted to make sure they were safe, that they were never part of the hurt. He verbally, now that I look back, verbally, he did say things to them that were not nice, or, and I guess sometimes I want to ask them about this, but I don't, because I don't want to bring up something that they've either put to rest or it's just too hard to talk about.
Did you feel like he was ever genuinely feeling like guilt, or was it always just a show of, I don't want to lose you, that honeymoon period?
It was never guilt. He was so fake. He was so fake, and he could play it off so well. But I let it happen because, he's going to be nice, so I'm going to accept that right now because I'm afraid. But yeah, it never once, I can tell when he is genuinely upset, and he never really was. I mean, mad, yeah, that was always. But say someone passed away, he would fake, it's so hard. He would fake cry about things. I think the only time I ever really seen him emotional was when a stray cat that he had taken in died, and I seen real tears.
That's fascinating and disturbing. So he could connect to an animal, but he couldn't connect to people?
Yeah. Was
that a constant?
Well, not animals either, really. He was kind of mean to animals too, but just that one cat. That was...
That's crazy. What was the name of the cat?
I don't even remember. I remember it was orange.
Okay.
I just can't remember. And I think it got cat leukemia or something, which is sad enough, right? But I never seen you cry when, he didn't go with me to have my children. I gave birth on my own. My aunt went with me, but he wasn't there, so I pretty much was on my own, except that, the master was there, and you couldn't do without him pointing out what you could or couldn't do.
Was that strange to actually see an emotion out of him for a cat? Did that kind of, I don't know, it just seems so strange.
It was so weird. You see this man that doesn't have, because he would fake cry when he was sorry. It was, I'm sorry, that'll never happen again. And the fake crap just came out of him. In court, when we were in court, when he was getting sentenced, and I don't even know what he said because I wasn't really caring, but he did this little sniffle thing, and I thought, you people, I hope you're not falling for this, because he's manipulative. It worked on me a lot in the beginning. And then once I went through it so many times, I was like, oh, this is not real.
Did he do that just so you wouldn't leave? Was that the whole He was scared of you leaving. Was that the goal?
Well, no, because he would threaten me not to leave. So I got out that very first time, and I wished now that I would have stayed out, right? Because then after that, I would think I was getting out, but then he would do things like one time I threw him a birthday party, and the babysitter had leave, so my kids were upstairs, and I put him in bed, and so he came up and was mad that I wasn't downstairs. And then, so a lot of people left, and he wanted to do something, and I didn't want to, so I got up out of bed, and I went and laid on the bottom bunk with my youngest. And he came in there and ripped me off the bed. Now my children are crying. I could hear them crying, and he hit me so hard he knocked me out right on my kid's bedroom floor. I came to, of course, his fake crying. I didn't mean to do that. I don't know what happened. Blah, 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 blah. So I got the kids back to sleep, and I thought maybe it was over because it seemed like everything was over, you know. And he came out of the bedroom with a shotgun, and he stood at my kid's bedroom door, and he said, "You think you're going to leave? I'm going to kill the kids. Our kids. They're ours." And so he stood there with the shotgun. I didn't know if it was loaded. I didn't know, but I wasn't walking out the door because he's going to shoot my kids. So I think people just don't understand the mental, it wears on you after a while. It just gets you and gets you and gets you. And, or he would say things, my dad passed away when I was in my 30s, and my dad was one of my favorite people in the whole world. And so we're at the hospital, and you know, we're waiting because I don't know what's going on. They call us in. I just want to see my dad. So they let me in the room, and I fell over on top of my father, and I was shaking, you know, and he bent over me and he whispered, "I'm your best friend now." And I thought, it's going to get worse, because now he doesn't have that. She might tell him, because now he's not here.
Was he scared of your father?
I don't know. I don't know if he was. My dad wasn't a real big man, but he was very authoritative, very kind. A lot of people loved my dad, and he was good to him. You know, my dad was, if I went to my dad, he would have probably killed him, and went to prison, because my dad was like my mom and dad together. You know, he was the parent. And yeah, I don't think he was afraid of him, but he threatened to kill him because he knew that was my dad. You know, he knew what that meant to me, and how close we were. And so yeah, I think I went way off track here on you.
No, you're good. You're fine. When he said that to you about being your best friend now, was it meant as a threat, or did he try? What was the tone and energy of it?
I took it as a threat. Like, now you have no one but me. It pretty much is how my head heard it. So yeah, I knew things were not going to get better, because now I had, you know, that leverage I did have was gone.
How does one get out of something like this, in the sense of what would your advice be? Because it sounds so complicated, so scary, so legally it seems like the legislature is not on the side of understanding human beings like this. I mean, where does your mind fall with that?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I wish that I would have known how to get out before it got to where it got, you know, because I thought when I got out, I was good. And then 6 months later, hell broke loose, right? So you think you're safe. I think you just never know. I think the men that do these things, something's off. Something's not turned on in the brain because they don't see it themselves. I think if you get out early, you're good because the ownership isn't all the way formed yet, right? You're not, and it sounds weird to say it that way, but that's how I picture their mind saying, okay, we got to go through all these steps because I'll be in control. And then they won't leave or they'll be too scared to leave. So if you can get out early and I don't even know, reach out. And now I think it's a lot better than it was in the 80s and the 90s when you were told just to go walk it off, right? Go walk. And because now I know that I've heard other people say that if the police come, one of you are going to jail, if not both of you, which is kind of scary too, right? He's hurting you, but he could say you hit him back, and so you're in jail too.
Right. So
I don't know. I think we just need brain classes for these people.
Yeah, do you meet people in life where you can kind of clock like you have the sickness, or you are somebody who I can feel like you have those vibrations in your energy that tell me that you are a controlling, possibly dangerous person?
If I see them with a woman, yeah, I can feel it. I can see, like, they can fake it in front of people so well, like my ex-husband, but I feel it and I see it, and I try not to stare because I think that, what are you doing? What are you doing with him? Like, I have someone close to me right now that I'm worried that she's in the honeymoon phase again. And I can't tell her to run. I can be there and I can sympathize with some of the things she's saying, and I can even relate to a lot of what she's saying. Or I say to her, she'll say something and I'll say, that's what happened to me, and then this happened, but I don't want to do tit for tat with her because I want her to be able to come to me and say something to me. And then sometimes I get tired. Like, I can't win this. I can't get her out of there. And when you think you got them, they drag them back in.
Is that out of love or out of
See, I think that by then you're so brainwashed, you think it's love, right? You think that person loves you because you love that person. Right. But then they chip away at that love. So you still feel like, I'm in love because this is my children's father, or I'm in love because this is the person I married, or, I don't think we're so worn down and our self-worth is so gone. And by that, I mean, I gave up on myself, right? I look at pictures from 15 years ago. I looked like I'm older than I am now. And I just thought I just had given up. I gave up and I didn't care. And as long as I took care of my children and the house was clean and I didn't push buttons when, I shouldn't, but you never knew when they were pushed either. So
did he ever do anything out of the ordinary where you're like, this is just an odd, I don't even know exactly what I'm asking, but something, it just seems so specific with a human being that has all these characteristics? Like, what they have, like a human face mask on, but like there's a different face behind that mask than hopefully what the masses are walking around with. So was there anything that kind of gave you any kind of hint towards like, okay, this isn't an odd, there's an anomaly going on here, or there's something that breaks from the matrix usually for his behavior, his words, or his thoughts, or his anything?
Never thought about it.
I guess the cat thing that's
Yeah,
you know.
that was odd. I think that too is when he was angry, I didn't see anyone there. Right? It was like there was no one in that body except evil, except mean. And when it happened, it just happened, right? I could walk out the door and walk back in, and because I didn't take my shoes off prior to the rug, it could be a trigger, right? Or the morning I kicked him out, I was sleeping on the couch. We don't sleep on the couch. Apparently, wow. I didn't know this, right? Like, I slept on the couch. But he forgets that I was the one who rushed home when my daughter said he was having chest pain. I got the ambulance. I got him to the hospital. He could have died. He didn't think of that part. And it's horrible to say, but sometimes I think, what was I doing that day? And I know that's awful, and God forgive me, I shouldn't. But I just think, and now when people say things, people say, well, he probably won't get out because he's going to be 62. He probably won't be too, and I'm thinking, I'm pushing 60, and you're making it like he's this old guy that's not been in jail working out and I said, you just don't know him, though. You don't know him. He's something up there is wrong. Sure.
Was there any contact made while he was in jail to now?
No, because then he'll break the order of protection. I did call the DA one time because, a name that a kid I used to babysit for showed up on my Facebook. And when he did, I'm looking into it. And of course, I'm nosy. I have to look up people because I'm like, why are you on my Facebook?
Sure.
And come to find out he was in Attica. So I called the district attorney, who was like, as long as he doesn't make contact, either one of them. But someone reached out, not to me, but to my daughter 2 years ago on Facebook and said, was it my daughter, Pete? It sent a message to someone to get to my daughter, so not directly to my daughter, saying, your father wants you to get a hold of him. And I thought, let this person write me because I'm going to get him. But he never did. And I don't even know how he knows him. So he was up near Rochester, this kid, young kid too, probably 20. So all we could think of is maybe he knew someone in the prison and they knew him. So, so triggers for survivors are different. So that's what I'm trying to think of, like what triggers me and how do I react when that trigger happens. And I can't pinpoint what would trigger him really, because sometimes it felt like for no reason. The name calling or the yelling or the controlling, like, tell your mother you got to do something and you can't do this, or so yeah, I don't think that we really can see it.
So if he breaks any of probation, does that mean he goes back to jail again?
Yeah. So my order of protection right now from the judge that sentenced him says that it's in effect until 2037. But his parole would only be 2 years. So yeah, if he broke parole, he'd have to just finish the 2 years. It wouldn't be added. I don't really know the law.
Okay. That's
I mean, up until we went to court, I didn't even have a parking ticket. So it was a big thing from never gone to court to attempted murder, going to court and it was me, not something on TV.
Is there anything that's preparation-wise that you're speaking to anyone about concerning this upcoming date?
I'm going to be working on that soon.
Okay.
I know I want to get a hold of the district attorney's office just because I have questions. And they've been real good to me this whole time. I actually haven't talked to anyone down there in a few years, except for when he got moved. I did call down there for that. But, yeah, I just want to know what are my rights?
Yeah.
And do I have any? Because I feel like I'm just the survivor, right? I don't know that I have any rights. I didn't. At one point, I thought I wanted to go after him, so when he got out, he would have to pay restitution. Well, by the time I'm mentally ready to do this, I guess it was too late. You only have a certain amount of time to. But I'm thinking, physically, I'm partially disabled from some of the stuff that he did. I have a lot of problems because of being stabbed in certain places, or, I don't have real good my right hand is the worst of all things, but I have other issues from being stabbed other than mentally, which I'm better now. I wasn't in the beginning. It was a hard thing to come to grips that someone actually tried to murder me. I think that was worse than all the abuse, is because I was used to the abuse and I was used to the threat of I'll kill you, but it's just like no follow-up. There was no follow-up. And then I leave, and everything, for a week or two was good, and then the crazy happened, and then the follow-up was 6 months later, right? So when you're least expecting that, and that's why I tell people, if they say they're going to hurt you, believe them.
Did he say anything during the attack at all?
Calling me a lot of names that weren't real nice. Thought that my friend was my boyfriend and that I was cheating, but I had left the marriage. I was done. It was 6 months out. I was going for a divorce, so and the funny part is I don't even remember who I said to, some of the DA's office, and I go, I wasn't doing anything, and they said, you could have been sleeping with 20 people, who cares? This doesn't happen.
Sure,
this is not a reason to hurt you, is because he thought you had a boyfriend, or you were going places without him knowing, because he would try to follow me places. So it just got that was a whole crazy 6-month thing going on. But
how did he have, not how did he, but he must have spent an immense amount of time, like you were his full-time job to terrorize you. Did he have any, was that just the main thing he did? How do you hold down a job? How do you have hobbies? I guess you're all encompassing that.
So he did have a job. We had he had, not me, any part of it, but did roofing and siding kind of thing. Always, we didn't have money because he spent the money on what he wanted. So fast cars, or, a motorcycle, or, just these things, a dog that spent all this money. Or he would do things like, he bought this, I forget what it was, $2,000 dog, because, here, I bought you this dog, but he really wanted it. You know what I mean? Or he would do things like, you don't have to work today. You could come to work and help me. Or here's all the papers. You could sit here and do all the taxes for my company, because you're going to get food, or you're going, we have to pay. But then there'd be parts where he would just sit home. And just before I kicked him out, this is what he was doing. He wasn't working. We were trying to get disability for him, because when we first got married, way back, he had a punch press accident, and it cut off his fingers. But he went to work like a month or two right after that, went back to the same job. Horrible time, but we were young and, you know, we just had a baby and your fingers are gone and just, so it was crazy. But when I got a job, he had a job. His fingers got cut off. He made me quit my job to take care of him. And I had a baby, so him and the baby, so I didn't need a babysitter anymore. But it was my fault. His fingers got cut off. It was my fault. He would say things, just ridiculous things. We were young. You know, if you didn't keep me up all night, this wouldn't have happened. Sure. So in my head, okay, now I pull back a little bit because that happened because of me, right? Yeah, just, I don't know.
When did you start seeing like a ray of sun through the clouds post the violent attack?
Probably the day they sentenced him.
What did that feel like?
I was free. I wasn't scared because even though he was downtown that whole year, I was scared, right? Because he was in the same city, and like I said, I didn't know a lot about the law. So could he get out on bail? Could this happen? Could he, because I was petrified he would come back after us. So that day when they said sentenced and we knew he was going to Attica, I just felt like everything lifted. Everything felt lighter, and it still wasn't over, right? I still had a long way to go, but I do remember we walked out of the courthouse and the sun was shining, and I just thought, we can start over. The four of us, it was just us against the world, right? And I had the girls, and I could watch them grow. It was his own fault what he did. He couldn't be there for them or see our grandson grow, or and I say that in hindsight of I don't ever put him in anything that the four of us do. Well, now it's 6 of us.
Did it feel odd to have, how long did it take for that freedom to kind of set in and safety?
It took a while because I kind of have regressed this year. So in the beginning, I was putting empty soda cans on my windowsills so that if someone lifted my window, I would hear them fall. They'd be locked, but just I would do things. I've always, since everything happened, check my back of my car. I'm afraid to look at, to get in my car unless I check the back. No one's in there. And these are all things because of what happened. I don't think I've ever checked my car prior to that, even though, because, I had mean at home. Nobody else was that mean. So, and then I'd say a good couple of years it took to stop doing that, I went from cans to wind chimes to now. Just recently, I purchased the little things that go on your window and you turn them on. So if someone touches your window, it's going to go off. I also live alone now. So, off and on, Allie has been with me or Amanda's been with me, but they're grown and have their own lives. Amanda has children. Allie has her dogs. But yeah, it's... and now it's taking me living alone again to try to come back out of that. But then part of me is like, he could get out next year. He could get out on parole. And then, like I said, it goes back and forth. But if I go to parole, maybe they'll keep him, but then he'll get out and not be on parole. And then no one's watching him. And that piece of paper will mean nothing because I had it the night he stabbed me.
And you're talking about the restraining order?
Yeah.
Yeah. If you could speak to any judge, lawyer, whoever powers may be that could make laws that would create safety, what would you say to them?
I don't even know. It's a hard one. Because there's so many things running through my head right now that I think I should have asked or could have asked but now my thing is, why are they letting him out? You know, these men that do these things, he tried to kill me and he's going to try again. And I don't think they know that. I'm sorry.
You're great. Katie, you're great.
I don't think they realize how terrifying knowing he's going to get out is. And the judge I had was a good judge. But I don't think that he thought about the after. What happens after. Because 60 is not old, and evil doesn't go away.
I think you're an incredibly brave person, and I think you're incredibly smart, and you have a lot of people in your life that love you, and without understanding, I hear what you're saying with that terror, and I'm so sorry. And I think that
Thank you.
I would say 100% there needs to be laws that are changed and laws that are made, and people who understand the full and intense weight of what's going on here. I would say that I think you're an amazing person.
Thank you.
And I'm so sorry that this has been so much of your life. I would say I love that your daughters are very nice people, and they're out and about in Syracuse, and I run into them. Yeah, I don't know. I know laws take forever to go, and I know that there's crazy laws that you would think, how did that even be? How was that a thing? But whatever you do, or if you want to put out videos, or if you want to, I don't know, to any degree, we're about it here. You know what I mean? I'm in full support of you. I think definitely in the time leading up to his release, doing things is going to be very important, and you have my full support with that.
Thank you. Yeah, it's not just about me. I'm worried about the girls, and I know they're young, and I know they think they got this, and they're not afraid, but I think maybe a little. Sure.
Of course.
But yeah, I definitely have a lot to think about. I have a lot to, prepare myself. There's things I want to know, and like I said, I want to know what my rights are. What are my rights with him, and can something be done?
Are there like groups or like legal, like groups that deal with legal things that have, I'm sure they've got to be there have to be people out there who've gotten together and said, here's a commonality that we worry about when somebody commits an atrocity, and then 10, 20, 30 years later, they're coming out and they're still the same person. And like, we know them to be that person. Like, that is who they are, even though, we've lived this life. We know they don't change. What do we do? I mean, has there been any precedent set to what they're doing or they've done?
You know what? I'd like to know too. I'd like to find if someone, and it doesn't even have to be the domestic violence part of it, right? This is the attempted murder part of what I'm afraid of.
Sure.
Because my head is beyond domestic violence now. Now it's just the attempt to kill me, is what's forefront. I've done a lot of work on myself with groups and therapy and the advocates, and most recently with another, friend that wrote the book. So I know that they're there, and I know that they understand, but sometimes they don't have the answer either, right? Sure. And I think part of what makes me a little bit different is the people I am talking to have been abused in one way or another. But I think that my brain wonders if there's someone like me to talk to, like you're saying, a group, or because that part doesn't get talked about a lot. The abuse gets talked about a lot. And I haven't spoken in a few years, but I'm looking more into that again. So I'd like to find out if there's a group, like you're saying, that knows or is pushing for something to be different.
We'll put links in here. I think a couple links for people to reach out for resources, but that could be one of them where maybe we can put like an email or something where they can reach out to you, and it doesn't give any of your personal information out. But I think that I would 99.99% guarantee that there are a lot of people who are going through things that have no idea where to go for it, and that are awful. So, yeah. And you separating like the domestic violence from attempted murder 100%, like that though one has led to the other.
Right.
I 100% think that there should be a weight put to that, where it's not like this isn't somebody who went to jail for doing this and this. They went to jail because they tried to kill me. I understand what you're saying with that.
Yeah, because I know where to go for domestic violence and assault, and I know where to go for those things.
Sure.
I've been there, used up everything that they could give me. So I know that that's there, but yeah, the other part isn't there. It's never been part of a conversation. I mean, part of conversation just because it happened because of the domestic violence, but I've, in my brain, I guess, separated those two things, right? And the first part's been taken care of. I have, done therapy and everything. The second part hasn't.
Sure.
Even the therapist, I think, questions things, like I'm questioning that person, but they've never been there.
Yeah.
So there's no answer for them to give me because they haven't been there.
Is there anything else that you would like to say today?
I think we talked a lot.
That's good. Yes. I guess one question I ask with these is, if there's a message that you'd want to put out to the world from your heart, what would you want it to be?
You always ask me this. and I used to always just say that love shouldn't hurt, but and I stand by that all the time. Love shouldn't hurt. But just to look out for each other and to know when to reach out to someone or let that person in, let them know that you're there, and just be compassionate and kind and just love people for the right reasons.
I like your evolution of your quote. So, well, thank you for doing this. Thank you for giving me a lot of your time at the end of your day where you're like, and I know that you weren't sure about what this was going to be like, and so I really appreciate you doing it. So